Hey, welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness. This is Sherry Burton, your host. This is a podcast for women who long to feel, express, and be who they were created to be. Joining us today is Susie Sourwine. Cool last name, right? You'll get to hear more about her background as we proceed through our discussion, but she left the corporate world and followed her heart and soul to really make it her life's pursuit and mission to not only give herself the permission to be free and liberated and have the life of her dreams, but to then in turn, as is most of the case most of the time, for people who initiate and move boldly into new paths, they then have the desire to bring others along and to inspire them in equal measure. So let's talk. So we are going to talk about, releasing this conditioning to please other people and to foster the desire within you to do something different and to feel more alive in your life path through the act of giving yourself permission. And if you feel like you are lacking in giving yourself any kind of permission on any level, I actually do have a permission to shine audio CD on my site. Well, audio presentation, 90 minutes that you can find on sherryburton.com. I believe it's under products. And also I have my retreat coming up, which is October 24th through the 26th. I've got a handful of spots left, and that will really incorporate many aspects to letting your soul express and listening to what kind of permission your soul is needing from you as a conscious creator to let herself free. So let's listen to Susie and glean from her wisdom in this department. Well, Susie, it is a joy to have you on the show. I am grateful you reached out to me and we were able to connect on this, that we have this shared, appreciation for giving women the empowerment or the really permission, right? That's your MO, is giving women permission. But I love that we connected there in that space of sovereignty and how permission feeds into sovereignty. And so I'm so excited to explore this topic with you. And you're in Scotland, which is, woo, so exciting.
And it's not even raining as I'm talking to you. So it's good luck. Lovely sunny afternoon.
We took our older children to Ireland and never quite made it over to Scotland. And I just had regrets around that. So I'll have to come out there and do some exploring. It's a beautiful country.
You'd be most welcome. Come stay.
And you don't have a Scottish accent, which tells me you're not originally from Scotland. I would love if you could give our listeners just a brief little synopsis on how you landed there, because I know it feeds into a lot of your background in terms of your life shift and transition into giving yourself permission.
Yeah. I am basically a walking handbook of the practice of permission and the delay of permission, and making choices eventually to do the things that are the best for you. So I was born in Canada. I grew up in Southern Ontario to start with, and then my family moved to Saskatchewan, which is out in the middle. And I had the lovely, wonderful existence out there with horses and motorbikes and open country. And I went to university to be a veterinarian, and I realized quite early on that my love of animals did not actually translate to nanogram measurement in science and sick animals. So perhaps I should do something different. And I ended up in a career in the horse racing industry, which is something I was so passionate about and so loved. And it took me to 3 different countries. And so I ended up going to the US, and I was in Seattle for over a decade. And then I decided, despite having this amazing career in Seattle, that I knew it wasn't okay to stay anymore, that I needed to do more for me than just be good at my job. And so I quit everything. And I moved to the United Kingdom, and, everyone thought I was crazy, and they couldn't believe people had 2 minds. They either thought I was the bravest person they'd ever met, or they thought I was insane. I didn't have a job. I didn't have, all I had was the right to be here and a bit of savings. And I just got on a plane with my dog and moved to the United Kingdom. And 10 years later, I've moved up to Scotland, which is where I have some real ancestral connection to this place. And it's one of the reasons that I could live here. And I always wanted to be up here. And I found myself, in the South dreaming of it. And I finally just made the decision to give myself the permission to try it.
Wow, that's cool. That takes a lot of bravery, a lot of risk taking. That's a total soul move right there. So you had this international business development like background, and you had mentioned just this like old fashioned male dominated industry. Was that kind of instrumental in you like, hey, I need to speak to this. Like I need to develop this in my being and then speak it out. What led to that? Because you have this little book of permission that I love. And we'll provide a link for people to be able to access that. It's so fun to listen to. Like just, you could do anything after you listen to it. After you listen to it. So, yeah, what happened in you that, in terms of your feminine sovereignty, that led to that book?
Yeah. How about like the utter quashing of it and the, being in a state of battle for decades of my life, it's tough. It's tough. So when I was in my industry, and I still do some work in it, but not in nearly the same way, being the only woman at a table. And I was really, I was very, very forceful in the fact that I demanded a lot of space and respect, but that I say that without saying that it didn't cost me anything, because it cost me a great deal. In my reserves and my resources, my internal ability to do anything besides just scrap for my spot. And so while I was in a position of leadership, I was always very committed to mentoring and helping the young women coming behind me, because I knew what I had gone through. And I knew how much any little help had really changed things and given me more confidence to be a bit more bold, or a bit more, have better boundaries around things. And so I tried to always pass that backwards. And eventually I got to this point where I could see that maybe it wasn't just enough to lend a helping hand inside the workplace, but that we were all in different ways always encountering some of these barriers that I learned, after my own education, of my own post-education, education of real life, to be in our heads. And I started realizing like the things that I believed that I didn't know that I even believed anymore, that were still lingering around and guiding my life. And I'd had enough. And so I wrote this I had a writing mentor at the time, and I said, I've got this really weird thing. And she's like, it's not weird, Susie. It's not weird. Please just get it out. And so I went on a writing retreat in France, and I took it with me, and it was after like a Koya class, which is kind of like yoga and, a movement-based class, and we were in it was almost like a savasana. Everyone's laying there, and I was asked to read my book out loud to everybody at the time, and everybody sighed and gave me kind of that validation that I was onto something, and that we all, I guess it comes to part where I'm a bit of a rebel as well. So if you ever want me to do anything, the least likely way is to tell me that I have to do it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Well,
it was cool because everything is prefaced with, you don't have to. And I think that pressure of expectation that women carry, and maybe it's self-imposed, it's definitely culturally imposed. It's just kind of like, I think you pretty much covered everything we don't have to do if we don't want to. And and it's just really cool. Okay, so I'm curious, like I said, our connector piece was the concept of sovereignty being this really pivotal component to expansion and growth. Without that piece, there's a stymieing. That's a word. Your growth is stymied. Your expansion is, you contract. And so tell me how you developed that reclamation, if you will, of giving yourself that permission, right? And then how that lent itself to being able to just become empowered and just, that the decisions we make, the everyday decisions, giving yourself permission into your own sovereignty, your own self giving you permission.
What happened to me was that I made some really big decisions, as I kind of, just in my bio a little bit. It's I made a decision to move to America. I made a decision to quit everything and move to the UK. I eventually made a decision to leave a regular job and become, a consultant and work for myself. I mean, I made all these big decisions, but I found myself still not expressing what I really wanted to do or what I had in me, the ideas and the thinking and the sharing and the creating. I found myself, okay, I made those big decisions that look really brave from the outside, but it's like, I haven't even gotten started yet. And I couldn't put my finger on why I hadn't started. And so basically, you kind of look at it backwards and it's like, okay, I had shaken off, and a lot of people haven't even had the opportunity to get to this point yet, but I'd shaken off a lot of chains. I broke them or ripped them off the wall, and I didn't do it all that gracefully all the time, but I did it. And but then I was still standing there. I was just standing there, and I wasn't writing my book, and I wasn't telling the stories that I wanted to tell, and I couldn't be brave. And I realized that I didn't really have a good sense of self-sovereignty, that, I had a great rebellious streak. And I knew that was a valid rebellion that I needed to go through. But the act of making myself was something that I didn't know how to do. And for me to even start that, what the process was for me, I had to start looking at what I didn't have to do, because I couldn't even I couldn't go straight at, you have to write your book, or, people say that you have to. And it's like, well, no, actually I don't. I can do a lot of other things besides that. And time can go by. And it's like, well, why aren't I? And what are these have tos? And what's the difference between a have to and a want to and a should and why do I have these physical reactions to those things? And how many options and choices do I really have in any situation that takes this back from the world happening to us and grabbing your sovereignty and making your decisions to engage with the world on your terms from however you can. And so having that experience in myself over the last decade, once I had the idea about a little book of permission, and just I wanted people to understand how many choices they actually had. I refer to this a lot, but it's that Paul Simon song, "There's 50 ways to leave your lover." Like 49 of those ways you're not going to do, okay? You're just not going to, get on a bus, Gus. You're not going to do that, but you could. And so when we think that we have to do something, which is only one portion, that's also that's not looking at enough options and not taking responsibility and choosing your own sovereignty to say, well, actually, I've rejected those other things and I'm going to do this thing. I don't have to do anything, but I'm going to do this, or I want to do this, and changing that language and creating, being participatory in the creation of your life as opposed to letting your life happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. That proactivity, intentionality definitely is a piece to the reclamation of your own power and sovereignty. So where does choice come in? Because I know that choice, there's so much charge around that, right? What's right, what's wrong, what you should do, like you said, all the have tos. So how do you just release the I guess really what it is it's an attachment to the opinion of others. Because if we're waiting for someone else to give us that permission, there's something there. There's like a bridge there, right? Between, hey, if I'm going to wait around for someone to give me the go ahead, I'm going to be waiting around a really long time. And it's easy to stay in that space of just kind of acquiescing to what
for
other
decades,
people's
right?
expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, I still fight that. Like it is so deeply conditioned in me to wait for somebody else's permission and approval to do things, that it's something that I still battle with myself every day. And I know that I am not alone in this. And I think, you talked about it right at the beginning there, whether or not it's some of it's cultural, some of it's individual, some of it's expectations and family dynamics and all of that stuff. And the holy crow, what do I believe? What do I want? Yeah, it's not an accident that one of the greatest cultural jokes of our lifetimes is, what does a woman want? Right? Like, they make the movies. There's a great, if you'll indulge me in a little story, it's an Arthurian legend, and it's I've kind of updated it a little bit, but Arthur, it's on this "what women want" kind of thing. So Arthur and Gawain and some of his other buddies go out hunting, and Arthur gets lost by himself and runs into this really big giant man, and he unhorses him and is about to hurt him, and his friends come in, and the guy says, Arthur, you either have to answer my quest or I will kill you. And he said, oh gosh, I'm the king, I shouldn't, whatever. And so Gawain is a good guy, and he says, I'll do it. He's like, will you take me instead? I'll do your quest. And if I don't do it right, you can kill me. And so the giant tells them that they have 1 year to figure out the answer to the question, what do women want? And Gawain's like, no problem. I'm charming. I'm a knight of the round table. I got this sorted. I'll just send people to every corner of the country and we'll get this. And so they went to every corner of the country, and everybody came back. They asked every woman they met, and everybody came back with a different answer. And it was the night before they had to reply to the giant. And this crone woman was on the side of the road, and she's kind of like, hey, Gawain, I know your answer. He's like, really? I really need it. It's tomorrow. It's getting a little tense. And she's like, yeah, but if I give it to you, then you're going to, you need to marry me. And she's like this crazy, Disney-eyed, kind of Disney-fied crone on the ugly old woman. And he's like, I'm in, no problem. He's like, I'd rather live. And so she tells him, and he goes to the giant, and the next day, and he says, yes, I have your answer. And he's like, what do women want? And Gawain says, sovereignty. And that's why the answers are all different. Because each of us have our own sense of what our sovereignty is, what our mission is, what our space in the world is.
Yes. It's interesting. Yesterday I went for a hike in the mountain in Sundance. I live in Utah, in the mountains, with a friend. And she's done a lot of high level trainings, and she's a trainer herself. And both of us have been on separate but distinctive personal growth trajectories, I guess you could say, in lots of trainings and different things. And we whittled it down for ourselves. Like, what do we value the very, very most? In other words, what does a woman want, right? For us, it was liberty, it was freedom. And I think that at its core, in terms of values, sovereignty is about freedom. And we literally crave that. Because women have not always had, because we're so nurturing and giving and so attached to interpersonal relations, and we're so relational in general, it's a challenge to be in our own space and give hone our reserves, if you will, for our own well-being. Right. Yeah. And gathering those reserves. It's tricky, but it's interesting, because I have literally whittled it down to I thought it was peace. And actually that's probably the higher, but she and I discussed together that peace and freedom are very much on the same spectrum. I mean, they're very close cousins. And so if you're feeling freedom, you have peace. And if you're in a peace, you're likely, on your way to freedom, if not there. And so sovereignty means holding a space for that peace and freedom.
Within your own boundaries, right? Like within the boundary of self. Within sovereignty is that peace and freedom within self, in my opinion. And so it's that those shoulds and have tos don't have a bearing on you. That is not you couldn't be compelled to do something you should do. When you're feeling sovereign, you choose. You choose to, or you choose not to. And there's no there's no unchosen burden, because I think we all, being free and being peaceful and being sovereign doesn't mean that you don't carry burdens, and that you don't choose, to care for others or do work that, is costly to you sometimes out of your reserves. But it means that you do those with a very wide open space. And I think as women, particularly in this time, we just haven't, everything conspired against us having that kind of a mindset or even understanding of ourselves that are the very nature of some women, to be overcaring and think has been totally and completely, channeled and funneled against ourselves. And it's a frustrating condition. And I think, I'm really lucky as in I'm in my 40s now, late 40s, I'm single. So I have less chosen burdens to take care of while I'm trying to do this work. And I see the privilege in that. And it's such a wonderful time of my life to be able to start, like what you said to me at the beginning, to start saying these things, to start messaging them, because I have the energetic space to do that when I take care of myself.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. And I found in my own life that I don't have the energy or the wherewithal to speak out with the messaging if I'm not generating those reserves through self-care. So let's dive a little bit more into the permission and how it's related to thoughts. Like, I know you and I have talked briefly before, and we've exchanged some emails about decluttering your thoughts and your beliefs about obligation. And you said, as our closet, it can become a closet. So do you want to expound on that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we need to take an inventory of the stories and beliefs that we hold on to. Just like you have to go, Marie Kondo is like, you have to do that to your head. Okay. Like, because we hold on to stuff. We hold on to stuff because it's comfortable. We hold on to stuff because it's always been there. We hold on to stuff that, once had sentimental value and when we do that with stories and beliefs and thoughts, what can happen is that we end up living a life that's out of alignment with what we really want to be doing, or it prevents us from doing those things. And sometimes it prevents us from even understanding what we actually want to do. And so, what the exercise of the book is basically that decluttering exercise where I take a list of everything I can think of to take you on a bit of a run through to start thinking about what other stories and things you might have on your list about things that you were taught in, so I was raised Catholic. So things that you were taught in Sunday school, things that you were taught at university, things that you were taught at high school, things you were taught in your job, those things that were said to you or that came through on a favorite movie. And that when you look at them 10, 20 years later, you go, I don't believe that. Yeah. That or that doesn't encapsulate it enough for me. That's not wide enough. That's not gentle enough. That's not, that's just not who I am. And I think we carry a lot of those things around, like underwear with holes in them that are in the back of the drawer. It's just like, you just got to go through it and keep reminding yourself of who you are and, what might be, what thoughts, particularly, I think that with the have tos and shoulds, is basically you just start paying attention to your own thoughts and your own conversation to yourself.
Yeah, and that monitoring or present mindfulness, I guess, for me, it's been, as I've kind of gone through my own life shifts recently, and kind of still in transitioning with many of them. Similar to what you were talking about, how you just kind of went, I don't know if that's not expansive enough of a belief for me. Like,
That's right.
It's like, what are the paradigms that I've bought into that, and I see it all over across the board, all over media, governments, everything. What paradigms have I bought into that have disempowered me or made me feel like I don't have a choice? Because we always have a choice.
That's right.
And the binding happens
and
when we feel powerless around making a choice, our own choice.
Exactly. And where we just can't even begin. So I talk about the change sequence in my work. I talk about the change sequence being the desire, you desire something, you decide to do it, and then you do it. And that's how we create change in our world. But if you don't even know what you desire, you can't even get to the stage where you decide, which I believe is where permission lives. And then go on to take the action. So it's when you're sometimes you know what you want, but you don't make the decision. You don't actually give yourself permission to want that, and then therefore to take the action. And sometimes you don't even, I remember a time in my life where I didn't even know what I desired. Like I couldn't have articulated to you that I wanted to live in remote Scotland and grow some stuff.
Yeah.
And walk my dog and count butterflies and look at things. Like I didn't know how to even say that this, or even know how to articulate that this was something that was meaningful to me. I thought I had to. I thought I had to have a big career. I thought I had to travel the world, and I thought I had to do all these things, and I did them. And I was in the same spot after I did them. And then that's what caused me. Some people don't get that lucky that they get to do the things that they thought and then find the emptiness if it wasn't the right thing. But I think we find that in our lives all the time. It doesn't have to be the big grand stuff. I mean, I did some pretty showy stuff, right? But I don't think that's how it goes. I don't think those were the most important ones for me. It's the smaller everyday little decisions and understanding how I want to create change that has actually impacted my happiness and my freedom and my sovereignty. It was never those big choices. It's been these little micro decisions that I make every day.
Yeah. So how did you, just in terms of practicality, is it more of like a brain dump onto paper of kind of like what you know exactly what you don't, you may not have clarity on what you actually want, but you know what you don't want. What other practical,
right? Is it easier to start there?
I remember, a dear friend of mine who was going through a lot of anxiety, and she and I were working together. I was her coach, and my older sister, Tanya, I got to a point where we were kind of at an impasse, and I'm like, I don't really know how to help her. And so anyway, my sister gave her an assignment. My older sister is a coach as well, but we have different styles, but my sister just cracks me up. Anyway, she told her to go. Part of the anxiety was coming from that this young lady was experiencing was coming from a place of, I don't know what's next in my future. And she felt a little paralyzed. And so my sister had her go to a drive-through. My sister sat in the driver's seat, and she had this young lady drive through a drive-through, like a drive-through fast food restaurant. And she said, when the person comes through on the speaker and asks you what you want, you need to say, I don't know. And she's like, okay. So that happened. Loudspeaker came over. Hello, welcome to da-da-da. What can I get for you today? And she's like, I don't know. And it was so awkward. I was actually in the back seat. And we were just laughing. But then after we got to the actual window, and she still hadn't made a decision. So it was just so funny to see the teller, the customer service person go, what's going on here? You don't know what you want. You drove here. And she didn't realize we were in the middle of an exercise. But then this young lady finally asked asked her, well, what do you suggest? What do you think I should get? What's good here? And that was, all we gave her to work with. But I often reflect on that because we position ourselves, driving through life, if you will, and we stop at different places looking for something. We're searching for something. I think we're all searching for that peace and freedom and love, of course. But then we don't know what we actually want to bring it to us.
And I would like to say what brings, I love that story.
And what I would like to say, what brings me that wouldn't bring everyone else that, and same for you. Like, it would scare I don't know what I would do in Scotland with a dog and butterflies. It's just like, that sounds amazing, but I don't know that it would give me the peace and freedom I need, So walk us through how.
That's right. And that's, sorry, I keep jumping in too fast.
No, you're good.
Because you got me really excited because that's the answer. Well, not the answer, but one of the answers is that it's about a process, not an endpoint, right? And that's what I get upset when I see people trying to teach in the world an end point. And it's like, and this is where we go wrong and where we do harm. And I think, when we talk about my permission for coaches course is where I get into this about where we do harm, because we're trying to tell people what the end game is. That's what capitalism does. That's what religion does. That's what systems do, is they tell you what an end point is. And that end point is the same for everyone. And that's not going to, that's not going to bring you your sovereignty at all. And if you don't go into it with choice. And so, because again, it comes down to all that. So that the system, the steps of giving yourself permission and learning how to make choices is what will get you there, whatever there looks like to you. And there is such a different thing. Everybody has such a crazy, different, wonderful expression of what they want once they figure out how to even allow themselves to start thinking about that. So I say that there's like 4 tools to help learn to grant yourself permission. So you need to declutter your beliefs. So take inventory of those stories that you hold about what you can't, shouldn't, have to, and must do. And you got to look at them and see what you're putting up with, see what makes you feel bound. Like you said, what are you doing, but without particular choosing it? And if you don't choose it, drop it, let it go. You've got to let that go and make some space so that you can start to even have any energy to think about what you do want. Then you have to keep coming back. Sorry. Then you have to keep coming back to the present tense. Okay. So number 2 is like permission lives in the present tense. So you can't give permission to your younger self. You can't give it to your future perfect self, so that if I do this, then I'll be valuable enough and then it'll work or whatever. You can't do it. You can't give yourself permission in the future. It's only now. So the only possible action and decision you can make is in the now. And that's okay. What can I do today? I don't have to go to that birthday party. I don't have to, I don't have to go the birthday party today. Now, if you sit in here today and you go, I don't have to go to that birthday party in 2 months, you can also ask yourself, do I have to make that decision today? You don't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, think about the present tense. Like, I think a lot of our stress and unhappiness comes outside of the present tense. So try to pull yourself back into the present tense. And then we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest of ourselves that we can't make a decision from a place that isn't self-honest. So, and I'm, I learned this one the hard way is, if you're projecting that you're somewhere that you're not, and then you're trying to give yourself permission from that space over there, it's not going to work. You're not going to get there. You can only do it from here, however ugly, however wonderful, however sad, or however, beautiful that this particular place is that you are right in this moment, me at my desk right now, this is the only place that I can make decisions from. And I have to be honest about the limitations and the tools and the things that are available to me right in this place. And I have to take the first right step, the first right decision from here, as opposed to trying to make it from this idea of myself that I might not be truly honest. And I think that, I talk about this a lot for the permission for coaches as well, it's a protective skill from past trauma that we don't acknowledge what's happening. So
right.
It's here. It's a real thing for so many people that even it's such a habit to not be right here. And we have to understand that as well. That might be the first thing. It's that, holy crap, I am not even here.
Yeah.
I'm not
where
even
have
here.
I been?
And that was that was one for me.
Yeah. It's like, where has my voice been? Where has my sense of freedom and power been? Right.
Where was that? Like, it's all of a sudden 10 years went on.
Yeah.
It's like, where is it?
Yeah. And I find it interesting that in the NA and AA meetings, one of the steps is a fearless moral inventory, which is always a powerful practice to do to rein back in the integrity. How did I create this? And if I created this, what else can I create? Whether you've created dysfunction or
that's right,
or light, works of light, it doesn't matter. The point is that we can create whatever. And that, to me, when I landed into soul sovereignty, because it's always an ongoing thing, right? I say I landed into it, but it's a practice. It's a spiritual practice. But I know that when I'm in it, when I'm in that flow and feeling that power and groundedness and just rootedness, I feel almost invincible. And I also feel like I am aligned with the will of God. So I get to choose. My whole, you mentioned being raised Catholic. I've been very religious my whole life. Born into a very high demand religion, and it's been really interesting to juxtapose, right, the sovereignty with authority. And the most spiritual experiences of my life have been when I said, "This is what I know right now." And feeling that alignment with the will of God, and that even though it may not be the same pattern that's happening, in that structure or with those other people, or, just like everyone else, it's not homogenized. It's very personalized. And so I just wanted to offer that it's so different for all of us because, we all have different character traits and experiences. And I'm sure you can speak to this too. It's like, you're single, you're coming into your power, you're in your 40s, and that's a very beautiful life station. And to just, oh my gosh, I am a woman, and also like you're still battling the programming of what are people going to think, and so anyway, I just wanted to say, like, there's an invincibility that you can almost not make the wrong choice when you're really in sovereignty, when you're really aligned in it, and you sort of know you're aligned in it.
Because then because then all of a sudden, when you'll make a choice, then you'll know that you can make another choice. So if you get somewhere by making a choice that you're not particularly happy with, you already have the skills and the power to make the next choice to change that too.
Right. So, okay. I think we'll kind of sort of round this out. So you've given some really great tips about, giving, staying in the present. I love that. That's where all the power is. We only have right now. We can't change the past. We have no control over the future. And then you talked about having desire. You have to foster desire, and that's the passion that fuels the action, right? You said first it's about giving yourself that permission and taking that inventory or being really honest with yourself and realizing here's the stories I carry. Here's these protective mechanisms I have in place. There's some denial I might be in. How can I wake myself up and get honest and real so I can step into this and be who I really want to be in the world? Is there anything that you would add about, because, we women, we're change makers. There's a lot of women waking up to that. We know that there's new structures happening. We know that there's a new energy on the earth. We know that, I know you listened to my Mary Magdalene series, and you know that I'm really convicted about, giving women that permission to use their voice and to not be silenced, whatever that looks like. It might not be speaking necessarily, but is there anything that you would add to that to kind of amplify that messaging about motivating women for change?
Well, I think one of the things that I wanted to bring into this, and I particularly think it's when you're trying to be an amplifier and a teacher or a leader in this space, is that we have to do it a bit differently than it's been done. And to me, that means that we have to not only build the structures for granting self-permission into our work so that people have an opportunity over and over again to learn that cycle and to apply it and to see themselves successfully progress through the work that you're even offering them. And then to me, that also means that we also need to make it explicit consent-based, which means that most of our world is based on assumptive consent, and it hasn't worked for women for thousands of years. And we're coming out of that. And I think it's really important for us as leaders, as women leaders of other women and other men, that we include explicit consent opportunities in our work over and over again, so that every time we offer somebody the ability to make a choice, we also offer them the opportunity to consent to stay in our space, and to not find failure in other people not listening or responding or consenting to be in your space, because I think it will change everything when we actually functionally include consent, not only in our world and in sexual politics, but in our work and in the way that we try to talk to each other and teach each other. And I think that if we do that, we won't be so traumatized by the fact that we might be wrong about things, and that using our voice doesn't mean we have to be perfect. Being seen, this idea that we're, how unsafe we might be, and a lot of the unsafetyness, some of it, not all of it, is about that would be perceived to be wrong. And that we've made a mistake, because it's never been safe for us to make mistakes, because when we make mistakes, we're ostracized. We're not cared for. We're excluded from the family unit. We have no ability to own property and, of our own. Like there's generations of DNA that has made us revolt from being unsafe. And so when we use our voices, this fear of being wrong, I think we need to see that as the patriarchy in full play, and embrace the fact that by offering consent for people to come along with us or to disagree with us or tell us something new, and to be curious about that as opposed to responsive or triggered by it, is really, really important for us going forward.
Right. Beautiful. Wow. So well spoken. I appreciate you wrapping that in such a concise way for us. And just, thank you for your time today and giving us more of that, motivation to just really step into that permission. I'm going to direct everyone to that little book of permission, because that was powerful for me. And we will connect again. I'm really excited to see where your adventures take you. And of course, we can continue our discussions around the same topic as we move forward with a shared passion and perspective around the relationship between choice and sovereignty. So thank you so much for your time today, Susie. It was a joy.
Oh, for me too. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing in the world, and I can't wait to follow.
What a great reminder to shake off the chains, just be yourself. You are the only one that can give yourself the permission that you need and desire. Thanks for listening this week, and please share with your friends. I know that there are so many women who could be benefited by the deep discussions we ensue and the things that we ruminate on for the betterment of our lives. If you feel lacking in the power or the wherewithal to give yourself the permission that your soul needs to express and be, please consider joining my Stand, Speak, Shine retreat. It is about a month away, and it is October 24th to 26th, right on my website, cherieburton.com. At the very top above the nav bar, you can get more information. I have about 8 spots left and getting more and more excited to share and experience. You never know what happens when certain souls combine and gather together, and I don't believe there's ever any accidents with that. So have a beautiful week, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.